Good morning. We have some breaking lies, my friends, when it comes to Donald Trump's nominees for his cabinet. It is lies all the way down. Let's go. Now, some of you, many of you, followed from end to end and had to imbibe a lot of Tums, perhaps, and take some mental health breaks. But you may have watched yesterday the shockingly craven nomination hearings, Senate confirmation hearings before the Armed Services Committee of Donald Trump's joke of a nominee for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. And it would be a joke, I suppose, but it really is black humor, so to speak, in that, the joke is actually on us if and likely when Pete Hegseth becomes the Secretary of Defense. Hey, I'm seeing people showing up. And yes, Jen's on time today. Hey, Candy, nice to see you. Good morning, Hank. I've said hello to everyone else, I think. Hey, LaRonda. Okay, guys. So I know that you may have seen it, but what I want to do today on the show is highlight both the best moments of the grilling by Senate Democrats on the Armed Services Committee, as well as some reflections on last night's nightly news shows about the event. We'll also spend a moment talking about the report, the Jack Smith report. I know we covered it yesterday. We'll just do it briefly. And of course, I have my person of the day. I have a Today I Learned and Crazy Town. Okay, guys, before we go, remember, after today's show, we are also going to follow in a live stream beginning at 9:30, Pam Bondi's nomination hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee. As we get to the end of the show, I will throw that link in the chat, or maybe one of the mods will do that for me. Usually Susan is at the top of her game when it comes to links. Okay, let's do it. I think that I would like to start with and lead my way up to my favorite. So let's start with Senator Elizabeth Warren. Now, I was at a faculty meeting when Senator Warren of Massachusetts was doing her fabulous grilling. So I didn't entirely capture all of this because I was paying attention, even though I had my AirPod in my ear. Don't tell my colleagues. I could listen. I really could. But of course, I had to tune that out during most of that meeting. Okay, so let's play Elizabeth Warren taking down Pete Hegseth. I have just two clips of her. So let's start with this first one. These are not necessarily in order, but they are in the order of how much I love them. Okay, guys, let's do it.
Senator, again, I very much appreciate you bringing up my comments from 2013, because for me, this issue has always been about standards. And unfortunately, because of some of the people that have been in political power for the last 4 years, priorities other than standards, lethality, and meritocracy have driven decision-making.
I'm quoting you from the podcast. Women shouldn't be in combat at all. Where is the reference to standards? That they should be there if they can carry, if they can run. I don't see that at all, Mr. Hegseth. What I see is that there's a 32-day period in which you suddenly have another description about your views of women in the military. And I just want to know, what changed in the 32 days that the song you sang is not the song you come in here today to sing?
I mean, she's right. Like, Hegseth is trying to back away from his categorical comments that he thinks women should not serve in combat. And so he's saying, that's not what I meant. He said straight up. He didn't give any qualifications. This was recently. And she's totally taking him down. There's an excerpt I'm not giving you where she said, what is this? A conversion? You suddenly have changed your point of view? And again, another way of saying it, you're singing a different tune. And we know what's going to happen if and when he becomes Secretary of Defense. He'll continue to try to get women out of combat. And he'll say, you knew what I was about. This is how they play that game. Now we have another example with Elizabeth Warren on fire. Here we go.
Referring to women in combat as, quote, it would erode standards. June 2024, you said on Ben Shapiro's podcast, quote, women shouldn't be in combat at all. And then, of course, we've talked about it in 2024. You published a book, and you say on page 26 of your book, we need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units. Page 48 of your book, you claim that women should not be in combat roles.
Let me pause. Elizabeth Warren isn't just a senator. Prior to her Senate days, as you know, she was an accomplished law professor, including most recently, and maybe still is, tenured at Harvard. And as you also may know, she was my bankruptcy law professor. And let me tell you, and I think I've said this before, I love Elizabeth Warren. I revered her then. She was a star. She motivated us. She was full of energy. She was tough, but she was fair. And I was scared out of my mind of Elizabeth Warren, so much so that when I had to testify, or I was invited to testify before the Senate Banking Committee about the risk still existing in banks, and this was in 2016, I was so prepared for that hearing. I was more prepared for that hearing than I ever was for one of Elizabeth Warren's classes. And I nailed it. I think I did much better than I did in her bankruptcy class in terms of questions that I asked and comments that I made. So she comes prepared, unlike Pete Hegseth. Okay, let me continue.
Men, because men are distracted by women. And then 10 weeks ago, you appeared on the Sean Ryan show and said, I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. Now, I presume you recall making all these statements?
Senator, I'm not familiar with the article you're pointing to in 2013, but it underscores my argument completely.
I've got the video.
I've got the video. Now, you and I were laughing, but we should be crying because we know this doesn't matter, at least in the short term, but it still matters that they are standing up. Now, I also loved hearing Tammy Duckworth. I'm going to share two clips with you from Duckworth from the hearing, and then one from Duckworth at the news shows, which is funny in its own way. Okay, here we go with Duckworth. And you know, Tammy Duckworth is a senator who Duckworth served in combat. And you also may know that she was injured. And she was injured. She was a U.S. Army helicopter pilot. That is combat. She was piloting a Black Hawk helicopter in 2004. That's 20 years ago. It was hit by a rocket-propelled grenade, and this was in Iraq. She lost both of her legs and some mobility in her right arm, and she became the first double amputee from the war. Now, first female. So, you know, she has fought for the country. She has sacrificed for our country, and she wasn't just in the Army Reserves. Pete. Okay, so let's listen to what Duckworth has to say.
To that, you could do acquisition and cross-servicing agreements, which essentially are security agreements. You can't even mention that. You've done none of those. You talked about the Indo-Pacific a little bit, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. Can you name the importance of at least one of the nations in the ASEAN, and what type of agreement we have with at least one of those nations? And how many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact amount of nations in that, but I know.
Okay, so before I give his response, a lot's going on here. And I just want to be clear that Pete has been saying, the Defense Department needs to undergo an audit. We've never done that. And there are lots of people who challenge him saying, okay, you want them to audit the Defense Department. How many audits have you ever conducted? Not one, but he couldn't answer that one straight up. People asked him how many, the Defense Department has over 3 million employees, including civilians. And how many people has he managed? And it seems like maybe only 50. I mean, there was one organization he claims where maybe there were 100. Okay, that's nowhere near 3 million. And most people, as was pointed out, who would take on this role haven't managed that many people. But at least, I mean, if you think about hiring a CEO of a major corporation where there could be 30,000 or 100 more thousand employees worldwide, obviously those aren't your direct reports, but you're managing systems. You're managing IT, information technology, you're dealing with marketing, you're dealing with product, you're dealing with legal. And these things interact. You're learning you have to know how to read a balance sheet. He's also talked about cost cutting. He has only overspent. Like budgets of like what, 20 million? That's nothing compared to the whatever, over $100 billion. I think I had the number the other day of the Defense Department budget. Like it is like 820 or 840, depending on who quotes it, $1 billion budget. They want to put this guy in charge. Now, I'm going to let her finish in a second. But what I want to tell you, what's clearly going on here is Donald Trump chose Pete Hegseth because he's got a good jawline and he can perform well on television. Donald Trump believes. And he will not, in Donald Trump's mind, be making, even though he has the power, Donald is thinking he will just be a puppet. He will just be someone who his marching orders are given. And who would they be given by? I don't know, the defense industry, the Koch brothers who had supported the 2 charities or nonprofits for veterans he'd run. I'm not sure, but when you have someone who is underqualified, has no management skills, and is going to need to lean on people, he claims he'll put good people around him. He still is the decider. Who will he be on the phone with? He will not be the Secretary of Defense other than on camera. He is not qualified, and it's concerning. And so Duckworth is asking him here, who are the nations of ASEAN? And I got to tell you, the group, I'm ASEAN, ASEAN. I want to spell it correctly. And this is an association of Southeast Asian nations, right? It represents over 600 million people and a land mass apparently of 4.5 million kilometers, right? The member states, this is something I didn't know until recently, but there's 10 member states, including Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and so on, right? I could go on, the Philippines, Singapore. These are big nations. These are big member states. And if he knew ASEAN stood for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, he could have named at least 1 or 2. He doesn't know because he doesn't do this. So let's listen to Duckworth.
We have allies in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia, trying to work on submarines with them.
Mr. Hegseth, none of those countries are in ASEAN.
Across.
None of those 3 countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare for these types of negotiations. Listen.
Okay. He cuts women off more than men, but let's listen to Duckworth a second round. I love this one too.
Here's what I'm afraid of. He's already had to pay off a woman who accused him of.
I apologize. This is, there are 2 clips. This is going to be a clip when she is on MSNBC talking about her fears, reflecting on the hearing. Here we go.
Here's what I'm afraid of. He's already had to pay off a woman who accused him of sexual assault in order to keep his last job at Fox News, right? What is he going to be willing to do to pay off the next accuser who might show up after he becomes Secretary of Defense and has access to the nuclear codes and the location of U.S. troops around the world? What happens when he wants to keep that job and somebody comes forward? He's already told us that he's willing to pay off somebody. Does that mean that he is now going, we're not going to have a Secretary of Defense who potentially is vulnerable to blackmail? Is that where we're headed with this nomination?
Yeah, that is where we're headed. And vulnerable to blackmail, not just from the outside, but more likely from the inside. Obviously, Donald Trump at this point has more compromise on him. I think his team knows the full story, even if they didn't know at the beginning about the credible sexual assault allegations and the settlement after the police report. They have those details. They could ruin him so they can control him. If someone has the power to ruin you, they have the power to control you. Let's just ask Lindsey Graham why he is such a suck-up. That's just my editorializing. Now, there's something funny though, that Duckworth, and after Duckworth, I've got two more. I got Mark Kelly and Elisa Slotkin, but bear with me. When Duckworth was on with Chris Hayes last night, there was a bit of a funny exchange. She meant it in a certain way, but it kind of takes a turn. So let's play that right now.
Seth, on January 20th, I want you to prepare a plan to, invade Greenland. Could he lead that mission? My answer is no, he's not qualified. He wouldn't know what was a good mission and what was a bad mission. He wouldn't know who to put in the room to come up with the plans. And more importantly, I think he personally is a compromised individual whom our adversaries are watching and digging the dirt on. And this makes him somebody who is vulnerable to our adversaries. And we don't need that person in charge of, as you say, and I agree with you, the greatest military on the face of the earth.
I'm not quite sure.
Okay, what Chris is about to say right now is he's not quite sure he would want Pete Hegseth to actually succeed in that. So if you look at his face right here, I'm going to go back to the part where Chris goes like this. Do you see him sort of grimacing? This is when Duckworth is saying that if Hegseth were asked to invade Greenland, he would fuck it up. This is where Chris is kind of going, I kind of don't want him to invade Greenland, so maybe that would be a good thing. But point well taken. That is not exactly what she meant. What she meant is he wouldn't say no, and if it were something that were a valid exercise of U.S. power, he wouldn't even know where to begin. Okay, so that is Duckworth. Now, I think the kind of very impressive story here is what Mark Kelly did. When I heard him on the nighttime shows yesterday, it turns out Mark Kelly's very staccato yes or no questions or true or false questions line of attack against Pete Hegseth yesterday was not something that he had actually planned to do. After he listened, because Kelly was sort of toward the end, after Kelly listened to the way Hegseth was sort of stonewalling the questions, he redesigned, or his staff redesigned on the fly what he was going to do. And this is where we get to the famous response that Hegseth continued to give, which was anonymous smear. Now, yes, guys, Hegseth was not under oath. And the legal implications of this are complicated. Obviously, if you're under oath, you could face perjury charges. However, if you're not under oath, there is a different statute called the false statement statute. That's 18 U.S.C. 1001. And the thing is, it doesn't necessarily apply to a hearing like this because of the details in how it applies to statements made to Congress. And so without getting into the details, I do think I would have to do further legal research to understand if that is actually the case when Congress is engaging in sort of ministerial work, like, hiring and firing and buying supplies and stuff. It applies. It also applies to investigations. It's not clear to me whether it would apply to this hearing. However, there is an argument that because this is a nomination for Secretary of Defense, which is an executive branch position, that this statute would apply because he would be making false statements in the context of something involving the executive branch. Of course, this would be a wonderful legal research question that I should give to my students, and maybe I will, just generally about confirmation hearings, or I could do it myself. Anyway, so that's the thing. He was not under oath. So let's listen to Mark Kelly. He does a brilliant job here.
You needed to be carried out of the event for being intoxicated.
Senator, anonymous smears.
Just true or false? Very simple. Summer of 2014 in Cleveland, drunk in public, with the CVA team?
Anonymous smears.
I'm just asking for true or false questions, true or false answers. An event in North Carolina, drunk in front of 3 young female staff members after you had instituted a no alcohol policy and then reversed it. True or false?
Anonymous smears.
December of 2014 at the CVA Christmas party at the Grand Hyatt at Washington, D.C., you were noticeably intoxicated and had to be carried up to your room. Is that true or false?
Anonymous smears.
Another time, a CVA staffer stated that you passed out in the back of a party bus. Is that true or false?
Anonymous smears.
Anonymous smears. Hold on. Hey, Susan. So by the way, Susan, I won't be using the PBS link today for Bondi. I'm going to be using the direct link from the Senate itself, from the Senate's website. So that will make it hopefully have no glitches. Okay. So anonymous smear. He almost said anonymous smear to everything. Not everything. When it came to, have you ever been violent or physically abusive to your wives, he said absolutely not. But everything else he said, anonymous smear. Now, someone pointed out that no, the allegations against him were not anonymous. He knows who the people are. Jane Mayer of the New Yorker published a long piece about who they are. We have the name of the person who filed the police report. Anonymous means you don't know who they are. And I think I will look up the word anonymous right now in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Anonymous. Anonymous. Oh, I don't want the thesaurus. I want the dictionary. Anonymous. Known but not named. I heard the news from a person who will remain anonymous, as in unnamed. A beautiful manuscript illuminated by an anonymous medieval monk. How about a synonym for anonymous? Of unknown authorship or origin, an anonymous tip. An anonymous author, not named or identified. So it's kind of borderline. They don't want to come forward, but he knows who they are. We know who they are. They've been confirmed by the press. Now, ask yourself, why wasn't there an FBI report investigating them? Well, the FBI has not spoken to women who have reached out to the FBI. And I know that you might be, oh, it's Christopher Wray. Why isn't he doing this? Let me just tell you, I hate to bring the man up, but you know who is in charge of the FBI? Do you know who the FBI actually reports to? I think you do. The Department of Justice. Merrick Garland is still in charge, if you can call it that, of the Department of Justice. Why the hell didn't he demand proper FBI investigations? Why in the world are the women who want to speak out not being interviewed? I think we know this is a repeat of the Brett Kavanaugh situation where there's both a denial and an excuse. Oh, these are anonymous smears. He doesn't say they're lies. He says it smears his reputation. So on the one hand, he's claiming none of this. He's trying to give the perception, it's kind of a lie, acting as if they're anonymous when they're not. And if they're smears, meaning they're actually untrue. That is the implication, even though he is kind of, on the line there. Okay, so that's what he's saying. Those, I believe, are misrepresentations to the public and lies, right? And it's a lot like Kavanaugh in that there's also the but I'm not perfect, he says. When it was pointed out that when he allegedly raped the woman who filed the police report with whom he settled with, and now she cannot speak publicly because of the non-disclosure, at the time he raped that woman, allegedly, he was still married and he already had a child out of wedlock with the woman he's now married to, but they was just a girlfriend at the time. Okay, so when he was asked about that, he kept saying anonymous smears. So it's kind of like, or he said, I'm not perfect and I have found Jesus. Okay, I really wish he had found a recovery group, and Jesus can be there too. But if he's not just saying that Jesus or some higher power is looking out for you doesn't change your behavior. I think that's great. I am pro whether you're agnostic, whether you're an atheist, whatever religion or not that you support. But that does not change your behavior toward others or predict what you will do in the future. I'm cool with his belief that Jesus will forgive him no matter what he does, but I'm not cool with his behavior, which he has done nothing to change for it not to continue. So again, he's trying to have it two ways, which is people who support him are like, these are anonymous smears. And at the same time, they're saying, yeah, boys will be boys. Boys will be drunk at work. Boys will rape women. Does this sound familiar to you? This is a feature, not a bug for Donald Trump. When he can push through nominees like Brett Kavanaugh and Pete Hegseth, he is absolutely not just having people perform a loyalty test, but he is doing a very aggressive, non-consensual foisting upon us of the most toxic form of patriarchy that could exist. That is what this is. And I will also point out that when he was asked, I'm not sure who the senator was, but she was pointing out to him that it was Gillibrand of New York. She pointed out to him that in Afghanistan, that in war isn't just about lethality. He kept talking about lethality. War isn't about going out there to kill people. Strength matters, but how do you establish peace? How do you protect the people who are being hurt by aggressors? And women were the only ones who could gain trust in villages among other women. Also, as you know, lethality as the goal is how we get the My Lai massacre. And you might remember that Pete Hegseth was in support of the guy who had, and I'm forgetting where this was, but had killed civilians. And then I believe he was pardoned. He is kind of a monster. Those are his beliefs, and they align perfectly well with Donald Trump. Now, my last clip here comes from my Senator, Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan. She's new. She used to be in the CIA. She's on the Armed Services Committee. She used to be in the House. She is utterly brilliant. And I'm just going to give you this last clip so you can hear this. Here we go.
You agree that there are some orders that can be given by the commander-in-chief that would violate the U.S. Constitution?
Senator, thank you for your service. But I reject the premise that President Trump is going to be giving illegal orders.
No, I'm not saying he will, but do you believe there is such a thing as an illegal order that Joe Biden or any other president, Donald Trump, could give? Is there anything that a commander-in-chief could ask you to do with the uniformed military that would be in violation of the U.S. Constitution?
Senator, anybody of any party
Right.
could give an order that is against the Constitution or against the law.
Right. Okay. Are you saying that you would stand in the breach and push back if you were given an illegal order?
I start by saying I reject the premise that President
I
Trump will be
understand. You've
giving
done your
any
genuflecting
illegal
to him,
orders
but
at all.
Oh my God. I love that. You've done your genuflecting to him. Brilliant. Loved it. Let's continue.
Mike, this isn't a hypothetical, okay? Your predecessor in a Trump administration, Secretary Esper, was asked and did use uniformed military to clear unarmed protesters.
Okay. So guys, before I turn to Today I Learned and my person of the day in Crazy Town, I need to say to you that I know it's frustrating. I'm not suggesting you watch all the hearings. I'm going to provide clips most of the time. I know it's frustrating because we are not, and I say we, meaning because I am a Democrat, we don't have a majority in the Senate anymore. And when you don't have a majority, you don't control the committees. So that means you don't get to set up the whole hearing. And in terms of votes, you don't have a majority of votes. And unfortunately, Joni Ernst announced yesterday, she's a Republican on the Armed Services Committee. She has publicly stated that she's a victim of sexual assault. She also is a veteran, is my understanding. And She announced yesterday that she will support pig. Oh my God. I was misspeaking, but can we call him Pig Hegseth and not Pete Hegseth? Oh my God. Okay. She said she's going to be supporting Pig Hegseth. And yikes, because she has been put under so much pressure, right? Anyone who doesn't support him, they've been told they'll be primaried. And keeping her job is more important than her integrity. And the thing about this is there's a little bit of survival bias here, because the people who keep their jobs sometimes have to set aside their integrity. And she is eating it in public. She is supporting him. And, it's disgusting. So anyway, Pig Hegseth is most likely, unless something derails it, he is most likely to be confirmed by the Senate, such that by Monday or shortly thereafter, when Donald Trump is sworn in, we will soon then or thereafter get a Pig Hegseth. Now, there's a chance, that even if the committee supports him, some people, I think he can lose. I think it's only a margin of 4 that they have in the full Senate. So he can only lose a certain number. But I think they've got it sewed up. So we will have Pig Hegseth, you heard me, as the Secretary of Defense. Okay, guys. Now let's move to Today I Learned. So I don't know if you've been following TikTok. I don't mean on TikTok, but the whole fact that TikTok is in the crosshairs, and that there is, the ban of TikTok is less than a week away, January 19th. So today, last time I checked, is the 15th. So it's Wednesday, 16th. So is that 19th is this Sunday? And it's possible, unless the Supreme Court does something to stop it, TikTok will be banned. And here's what we know about that. 170 million people, Americans use TikTok. And the Supreme Court is considering the constitutionality of a law that would ban TikTok in the U.S. Unless ByteDance, which is the Chinese-based owner, sells off the operation. So they have until January 19th to sell TikTok. And I'm just gonna we'll get a little bit more into this in the future. The law is called this is a law that Joe Biden signed in April of this year, 2024, and the law is called the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act, PAFACA, and it gives the government, the U.S. government, the authority to ban foreign-owned apps that it deems a threat to national security. So that is what's happening. TikTok, we're not sure. It could disappear from your phone and from your desktop, either the 19th or the 20th. We just don't know what is going to happen. Now, apparently there's some other app that people are now starting to use. I don't know, but that is in place. So today I learned that there was a rumor that maybe Elon Musk will buy TikTok. I've also heard that that is just a rumor. So let's listen to Catherine Rampell, who I've called Charlotte before unintentionally. She is a fabulous reporter who is often appears on CNN and with Abby Phillips. And let's hear what she has to say about that prospect. This is great. Here we go.
What's the story?
What do you think of this, Catherine?
I will say, if you want to destroy TikTok, selling it to Elon Musk might be the most efficient way to do it, given that he turned Twitter, which was a $44 billion company, into a $10 billion
I was going to say,
company.
there are probably some regulations.
Okay. I don't like that Mr. Wonderful stepped on Catherine's comment. So I'm going to play it before he...
What's the story?
What do you think of this, Catherine?
I will say, if you want to destroy TikTok, selling it to Elon Musk might be the most efficient way to do it.
Okay. I like how we land there. If you want to destroy TikTok, selling it to Elon Musk might be the most efficient way to do it. I mean, there is some truth to that. And today I also learned that the SEC has sued Elon Musk. This is new. This just broke yesterday, and I am going to share this with you. I love the intersection between politics, money, and law, as you know. And so let's share this screen with you. This just happened. Okay, can you see? Yes, you can. I am so thrilled. Okay, here we go. The SEC has sued Elon Musk over Twitter-related securities violations. Regulators filed a lawsuit in federal court stemming from Mr. Musk's $44 billion purchase of the social media company now called X. There he is. Okay, this is a piece by Matthew Goldstein and Kate Conger. Goldstein covers white-collar crime and finance, and Conger, she just covers Musk and Twitter. Okay, what happened? The U.S. securities regulators sued Elon Musk in federal court in Washington yesterday, Tuesday, in an enforcement action arising from his $44 billion purchase of Twitter. The lawsuit asks against Mr. Musk, who is a close advisor to Donald Trump, is likely to be one of the more contentious final acts of the Securities and Exchange Commission under Gary Gensler, its departing chair. It could also be undercut in just a few days when Mr. Trump appoints new leadership to take charge of the regulator. The SEC contends that in buying Twitter in 2022, Mr. Musk violated securities laws by amassing a large stock position in the social media company without filing the proper notification. The complaint said he had waited 11 days before filing the disclosure with the SEC. Now, okay, what's going to happen to that? Well, right now, they obviously have a majority of the SEC commissioners. There are 5 of them who were willing to sign off on that lawsuit. Right now, those commissioners are Gary Gensler, and then we have Hester Pierce, Carolyn Crenshaw, Mark Uyeda, and Jaime Lizarga. And the people, it's confusing about who is on what team, because generally when a president puts forward SEC commissioner nominations, they have historically been paired, a Democrat and a Republican. So in Donald Trump's first term, he actually appointed to the SEC, well, someone was an independent, but he was more liberal. He appointed independent and a conservative. And previously, under like the Obama administration, they would put a conservative and a liberal on at the same time. So it's not clear to me. Obviously Gensler will no longer be the chair. It's not clear who is going to step down and when. Gensler's term doesn't expire until 2026. And no one's, it looks like Carolyn Crenshaw, her term has already expired. So she is someone who could easily be replaced, and that would tip the balance. But again, I don't know how the vote went down on this litigation, but it's quite likely it won't move forward. Okay, so today I learned that TikTok may not be surviving, that Elon may purchase it and run it into the ground, and also that the SEC has sued Elon. Of course, I'm not sure. I'm not that much on TikTok. I started being on it kind of this summer. I'm not that much on it. I enjoy it sometimes. But I guess if Elon Musk buys it, I'm off. And if they shut it down, I am off also. Okay, guys. Now, let's do person of the day and then Crazy Town. My person of the day is Hakeem Jeffries. He should be the Speaker of the House, but the Dems don't have the House, right? So he is just the minority leader of the House, but that's good enough for me. One day he will be Speaker. Let's listen to what he had to say. This is critical. Please listen carefully, because this is information we are going to have to continue to use to remind people in red states who think they can treat the rest of us like crap, who actually pays the bills around here.
Schools have been destroyed. Small businesses have been destroyed. Churches and synagogues and mosques have been destroyed or are in harm's way. And it is unconscionable that Republicans are suggesting imposing right-wing partisan conditions in order for California taxpayers to receive their tax dollars. California is one of those states, in fact, that sends about 5 times as much to the federal government every year than they get back in return. And so we've got to be there for the people of California. We will be there for the people of California, just as we have been for others across the country.
Yeah. So this is something to remember. We are the United States, and some states, partially because they're more well off economically, partially because they have more people, send more tax dollars to the federal government. You know, when you pay your taxes to the IRS, then they actually receive back in funding. And California is one of those states. So what's disturbing are these senators who are saying, well, we're not going to give California any money unless they, you know, they do what we want to do, like vote to increase the budget ceiling so Donald Trump can do the tax cuts for billionaires. Like, the deal here is that is really thoughtless and heartless and stupid. And a lot of those millionaires and companies and so on, actually, some of them are based in California. This is crazy. All of it doesn't make sense. This could be crazy town, but this is my appreciation for Hakeem Jeffries. And now I'm hearing others talk about this. We're in this together, right? Tommy Tuberville, wake up. Don't be this way. He won't. That's not the nature of power. Donald Trump will be using raw power to crush people and make them conform to his will. That is what he is doing. That is what he values. Okay, guys. Now, it is time for Crazy Town. But before I do that, this is a moment. I am going to finally, we have a ton of people who are actually, you know, official members of the channel. If you go ahead and do that, I don't even know what to click, but maybe the mods can tell you. This Sunday, I am going to have the first members only Zoom. It will be a Zoom so we can all talk and see each other. It's going to be this Sunday, January 19th at noon. And we can just talk about what's happening then. We can just talk. It's not going to be like a one-way me performing for you. It is going to be a real conversation about what's going on with TikTok, what's going on in the world, what we expect, you know, the day before the election. So please, if you become an official member, I will be communicating I can communicate to official members directly by the community page. And then I will do that and give you a way to communicate with me. I'm going to need your email addresses so I can send to you directly the Zoom link, because I can't just put that out on a platform and have it shared because we could get Zoom bombed. So please consider doing that. And for those of you who are members, thank you so very much. Okay, let's do Crazy Town. Woohoo! So, in fairness, I know after January 20th, we think it's all going to be Crazy Town all the time, but we'll have to be, you know, use our discretion and pick things out. So for me, Crazy Town was a moment at yesterday's hearing where Mark Wayne, all one word, Mullen, just was totally BSing his way through the hearing and lowering the bar beneath the basement level, beneath the shale, to the very core, burning core of the earth, where he should be down there with the devil, because what he is doing and what he is saying is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, here we go. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
Or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night?
I hope not.
Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean,
It's give me a break. Okay, I just, before I play the Crazy Town music and usher everybody out, I want to make sure you all have the link, because we're leaving now. It's 9:15, but I want to have you join at, if you want, as a team to watch at 9:30. At 9:30, there's the link in the chat. We're going to be live streaming beginning at 9:30, the Pam Bondi hearing. And yes, give me a joke, give me Crazy Town, give me anonymous smears. It is great. And as for anonymous smears, guys, before I play us out on Crazy Town, from now on, when I do something, wrong, for example, when there's only a little bit of Chex Mix left, and late at night when I need a little snack, and I go down to the kitchen and I finish the Chex Mix, and Michael asks me in the morning, Hattie, did you finish the Chex Mix? You really should tell me if you do that, because I can make sure I put it on the shopping list. And I say, anonymous smear. I am just going to say anonymous smear from now on when the answer is yes. Anonymous smear.